Welcome to Kicks and Minivans, the podcast for dads who love sneakers. I'm your host, KG. However you're watching and listening, man, we're so glad you're here. Thanks for tuning in and hanging out with us for a little bit. But we are getting into the summertime months. Man, I don't know where your part of the country or world, wherever you're listening from, but here in Indiana, man, it's been like 90 degrees for like 2 weeks straight now. And so we are in full summertime vibes out here. Kids are out of school here. And so Kicks of the Week this week, I wanted to share one of my favorites that I rock only in the summertime, springtime, summertime. It is the only pair of Jordan 1 lows that I own. It is the Jordan 1 low Arctic Punch. I bought these direct from Nike a while ago. I was able to scoop them at retail. Loved the look of them online. When I first got them in hand, I wasn't feeling them all that much, to be honest. I almost flipped them. I actually tried to flip them. Didn't get no one to buy them. And so I ended up saying like, all right, I'll just keep them then. And I'm glad I did. The only pair of lows, I'm more of a mid and high top guy. But I absolutely love these in the summertime. For those that are just listening, not watching, you got the white toe box, you got some pink and purple pastel light colors. Go with pretty much any summertime fit that you're gonna do. And so that is the Kicks of the Week. This week is the Jordan 1 Low Arctic Punch. What are y'all rocking in the summertime? Do you have certain summertime kicks that you only bust out in certain seasons? I got a couple that I have just in summertime, just in the fall or winter. So let me know what y'all rocking this summer. Before we get too deep into the episode, wanted to remind y'all, we talked about this on the last episode, 2 episodes ago actually. We are going to be pausing the new episode releases for the months of July and August. So we will keep on going. We got one more coming in June before we stop. We'll just kind of bookmark it and call it the end of season 1. We will still be rocking 8-minute Mondays all summer long. We might pause here and there for holiday break or something like that. Like we paused on Memorial Day. But we will be bringing you 8-minute Mondays just about every single week. So keep tuning in on Mondays. And then in September, we're going to be coming back strong with brand new episodes every other week still to help you guys win in marriage and parenting. That's what we're all here for. Let's continue to get into it. Talk for a little bit.
Hello. I would like to thank the viewers for my win.
Wow. Wow. You're just feeling very confident, huh? All right, we are doing a draft of animated kids movies. We did the live action last time. We're doing animated kids movies draft. Rock, paper, scissors.
Okay.
For first. Rock, paper, scissors, shoot. Woo! Got that first one. Number 1 overall pick. You already know what I'm taking. Give me The Lion King. One of my favorite kids movies of all time. It's just great. I haven't introduced Jace yet because of the whole Mufasa thing. And there's
a little more personal now.
He gets pretty scared in movies. It's very personal now. He gets a little scared in movies and stuff, and there's some scary parts, but like, that is a top tier kids movie.
It is a good one. My number 1 is Aladdin.
You can have that.
You can have
that. You can have that. I'm not mad about that.
Okay.
That's fun. It's a good movie. It is a fun one. All right. I didn't know where I was going after number 1. Number 2, give me The Incredibles.
Yeah.
Mr. Incredible. Yup, that's a good one right there.
That was number 8 on my list. So
we have very different opinions of animated kids movies, but that's all right.
Number 2, Hercules.
Again, not even on my list.
It's a good one. We have very different lists.
You grew up on Hercules. We didn't really watch Hercules a lot, though.
Yeah. See, I didn't like The Sandlot, and you grew up on The Sandlot.
That you're gonna bring up that and like reopen that wound.
I'm gonna do it. Jim face.
We've been watching The Office lately. It's her first run through, like full run through of The Office, and we've been like watching it every night. It's been fantastic. All right, number 3, give me Cars.
Yeah, Jace.
Give me Cars.
That would be number 1 on Jace's list.
That is Jace's favorite movie.
Yeah,
that's his favorite movie. Lil ka-chow.
Is that where that came from?
Yeah.
I guess I didn't put that together. All right, number 3, you're going to disagree with me, and that's okay. Mulan.
I had that one. That's a great one. That was my next pick.
Yeah.
Was Mulan. That's such a good one. That is such a good one.
Solid number 3.
Not your average Disney princess.
No.
She is. No, she's a warrior. She'll beat the crap out of you.
That's right.
It's a great movie. That's a great movie. I can't be mad about that. All right, my number 4, I'm going to go with Beauty and the Beast.
That is a classic.
That's like one of the best ones. That's one of the best ones out there.
Yeah, that one always scared me when they were traveling through the woods.
I get that.
Yeah.
I get that. That was a little scary. But it's like you just gotta love the story. Beauty and the Beast.
Yeah. All right, my number 4 is How to Train Your Dragon.
You are stealing my picks left and right. Oh, that was going to be my closer. All right. Number 5. This is a steal at number 5. Give me Toy Story. Toy Story. That, we can't let that one go undrafted.
Yeah.
There's so many good ones out there, but you can't let Toy Story go undrafted.
Yeah. My number 5 is... You just said your number 5, right?
Yeah.
Okay. I would say for the people, Frozen, but I liked Tangled better.
Oh, I'm with you on that. I forgot about Tangled. I didn't have Tangled. I did have Frozen on my list as like my number 10 just in case. But
oh yeah.
But like Tangled is a better movie. I forgot about that one. So this episode, we're going to talk about the 5 keys to a happier marriage. This isn't the 5 keys to a perfect marriage or a perfectly happy marriage, because I don't think those things exist. There is no perfect marriage. There is no marriage where each person is 100% happy 100% of the time. But there are great marriages. There are really good marriages out there. And there are marriages that are a lot happier than other ones. And I think, me and my wife, we're in a boat where we don't have a perfect marriage, but we got a great one. We got one where we work together as a team. We're happy. We take care of each other. And so this is an episode. This podcast exists to help men win in marriage and parenting. And so usually we're just talking to the dudes. We're talking to the guys, the dads, the husbands. This one, we're talking to everybody. And so wives, we hope you listen in and gain from this as well. And this ain't the end all be all. There's not just 5 things. You do these 5 things, you're going to have a really happy marriage. There's a lot of things that go into it. And depending on where your marriage is at, man, like y'all might need some extra steps, some more steps than that. You might need to sit down with a counselor. You might need to bring a third party into it, depending on where your marriage is at. And so these are 5 things that we do and we incorporate in our marriage, and that lead to us being really, really happy together, and working as a team to build a life together. And it all hinges on the first one. Everything else hinges on this first one. If there's one statement to take away from this whole thing, don't be selfish. Like, that's the first key. If you want to be happier in your marriage, don't be selfish. Because if you have 2 selfish people in a marriage, you are never going to have a happy marriage. Man, if you got 1 selfish person in a marriage, you are never going to have a happy marriage. Like, you're just not. Because you have 2 people that are going to be competing against each other to make sure that they are being taken care of. Or you're going to have one person trying to take care of the other while the other is only looking out for themselves as well. And then one's really great off and the other one is not. And so the first key to a happier marriage, and really all 5 things hinge and fall upon this one thing: be selfless. Look out for the other person. Consider them. And think about them. Number 2, communicate your expectations. Disappointment in life is simply unmet expectations, right? And in marriage, one of the most dangerous parts of that is that so many of our unmet expectations are also uncommunicated expectations, right? And I think like the rap in society and social media is that women are the ones that have uncommunicated, unmet expectations, but I think it's true for the dudes as well. I think a lot of times guys may expect something of their wife and they haven't even communicated that to her. And so this idea of, hey, if you have expectations in your marriage of your spouse, and it could be just about anything. It's like, hey, I'm a dude. I go to work. My wife's home all day. I expect to come home to a clean house and dinner on the table. And so when you come home and the house is a wreck, she ain't started dinner yet, that's an unmet expectation that leads to disappointment. Disappointment over time builds to bitterness. And so these expectations, if we don't keep them in check, can lead to bitterness over the course of time. And it's very dangerous when we haven't even communicated these expectations, because we're not even giving our spouse a fighting chance. And that eventually that is a form of selfishness, where we're saying like, hey, I expect my wife or my husband to just know that this is what I want. And you haven't communicated that to them whatsoever. And so whether it's stuff around the house that you want help with, whether it's financial stuff, it's stuff in the bedroom, like communicating your expectations. And what your expectation might be and what they are capable of providing might be like totally different. And so you got to come to some sort of compromise in the middle. And I'm not a huge fan of like the word compromise. I don't know. I think there is a lot of compromising that goes on in a marriage. But I think people can tend to think of compromise as neither party is really happy. And I think that's where part of the danger of that word lies. But I think there is a way for everybody to be happy with some sort of compromise. Because you could come to an understanding of like, hey, I expect this much out of my spouse, but I haven't communicated that to her. And so when we talk about it and we say like, hey, now I can see her point of view, and I see like, hey, she's capable of this much, even though I expect this much. Now I can change my expectations to say like, hey, this is reasonable and this is what exists. But these unmet expectations, especially the uncommunicated ones, can lead to disappointment and bitterness over the course of time. And so communicating those, talking about those expectations, and talking about when you have communicated them and they've still gone unmet, and just talking through those things and figuring out how you get on the same page about those things. The third one, some of y'all gonna roll your eyes at me for this one, but stop being petty. Stop being petty, especially with your spouse. Like, I think people talk about pettiness like it's something that they brag on. Like, oh, I'm this petty person. Like, I got time today. Like, people talk about pettiness like it's a spiritual gift. Like, they walk around like they're proud of it. And they know it's a flaw. They, like, brag about being petty, but they still know it's a flaw. And they say, like, oh, well, you'll just have to accept me as I am. Or you accept the fact that you're immature and you have some growing up to do. Because nothing will kill your marriage faster than pettiness. There are things that will kill it faster than that. But that is a very painful death to a marriage if it's just y'all being petty towards each other. Pettiness is simply refusing to put the other person first. It's selfishness. And look, I think there is a time and place where pettiness is hilarious, right? Like, I was watching this TikTok. This dude said he matched with a girl on this dating app. They had a date set up for a certain night, and then she canceled on him like that afternoon with some lame excuse. And so he's like, man, I felt like being petty. I remember Taylor Swift was in town in our city that night. And so I said, oh, bummer. I had Taylor Swift tickets. I was going to surprise you. If you ain't been following the hype, like this tour that Taylor Swift is on is like the craziest tour I think I've ever seen. All of a sudden she's talking about some like, oh, I can get out of my plans. I can go. And he's like, oh, sorry, I already invited my mom. She's a big Swiftie. And so, like, he's like, I just wanted her to think for the rest of her life that she could have gone to the Taylor Swift Look, I think that form of pettiness is hilarious, right? Not with your spouse, though. Stop being petty with your spouse. Like, if your whole intent in your marriage is to get revenge and to make them suffer the same way that you've suffered for something, like, why are you even married? Like, that just sounds exhausting. Stop being petty. Stop bragging about your pettiness, man. Let it go. Move on. And that's number 4, forgive. Again, such a simple, no-brainer one in concept. Like, yeah, we should forgive each other. Yeah, we should forgive especially our spouse. So many of us, we're holding these grudges. In the Bible, this dude Paul talks about love keeps no record of wrongs. Love keeps no record of wrongs. It chooses to say like, hey, I know what you did, but I've chosen to forgive you. I've chosen to let it go. And forgiving is choosing the other person doesn't have to pay. Pettiness is the complete opposite of that. Pettiness is saying you are going to pay, and you're going to pay long and hard, and you are going to suffer for what you did. That's pettiness. Forgiveness is saying, I know what you've done. It was wrong, but I am choosing that you do not have to pay for what you did. And I know that there are certain levels of wrong, and there are certain times in a marriage where it's like, hey, the trust has been severely damaged. In some sort of way, the trust has been severely damaged. And it's not just this simple, like, forgive it, bury it, move on, we're good sort of thing. There are certain times in a marriage, in different circumstances, where, hey, the trust has been broken, and it's going to take some time to rebuild that. And certain barriers and guardrails are going to have to be put in place to ensure that trust can be built back up. But for like 90-something% of the wrongs that happen in the day-to-day life of a marriage, forgive, man. Just let it go, because it's not worth holding on to and being petty and getting revenge about. Like, just forgive, move on, and be happy with your spouse. Like, if you just choose to let things go, you will be so much happier. You know, that old thing, like, you know, holding a grudge is like drinking poison, expecting the other person to die. Like, it's, you know, talked about so much, but it's so true too, that especially in your marriage, if you're just holding this grudge against your spouse, man, there ain't no happiness that's going to come from that, because you are literally living with this person. And so choosing to not forgive them is just choosing to be miserable all the time. And like I said, there are certain extreme situations where it's like, hey, that forgiveness is going to come slow. But taking steps towards that, taking steps towards rebuilding the trust, if it's a bridge that can be rebuilt, that's important too. It's just a slower process of forgiveness. But there's so many other things where it's like, hey, just forgive it, bury it, move on. Like, we talked about it. We talked about this unmet expectation. We buried it. We moved on. We're good now. Move on and live in that. The fifth one, the final one, this is something someone told us on our wedding day, is serve each other. This is such a simple concept, but it does so much for your marriage, right? Like, when we first got married, I had a buddy that got married within a couple months of us, and we were getting coffee, catching up one time, and we were both married under a year. And so we're just talking about that new married life. And he was talking about how hard it was. And I was like, all right, so what's so hard about it? Because I hear a lot of people say that first year of marriage is so hard. And he's like, well, you know, like, I got up, we were watching TV the other day. I got up to get a glass of water. I came back and she was mad at me because I didn't bring her a glass of water. I'm like, bro, do you hear yourself? Like, then y'all had an actual fight about a glass of water. Like, y'all had a real fight, a real argument about a glass of water. And y'all both in the wrong there. You getting up to get a glass of water, you could have just simply asked her, hey, do you need anything from the kitchen? She could have simply asked you, hey, you're getting up, do you mind getting me something from the kitchen? And she could have got up and gotten it herself. But the point is, it's like, hey, if you are always seeking to serve each other, you're both being taken care of. You are both helping meet each other's expectations. You are serving each other. And look, this is, I think, the number one thing that makes me so happy to be married to my wife, is that we both try to live this out as best as we possibly can. Right? Like, it's something so simple, right? But like, my wife, you know, she's the one that works outside the home. I'm home with the kids all day. Lately I've been having some sleeping troubles, and so she leaves for work early. I used to get up with her. Now I sleep in until the kids get up usually. But she leaves for work, she makes her coffee, and then she washes the coffee pot and the filter and all that stuff. Because there's nothing, if you're a coffee drinker, you know there's nothing worse than coming out in the morning, going to make a pot of coffee, and you got to wash everything first. And it takes her like 2 extra minutes to wash that stuff before she leaves for work. But what it does for me to start the day, it's like, oh, she was thinking about me. She was looking out for, and it's simple. It's so simple. And you're like probably rolling your eyes listening to that. But I'm telling you, like, that's what it takes. Something so simple as that. It's me packing her lunch the night before for her. It's me doing meal preps and making her breakfast as I meal prep my own breakfast for the next morning. Like, it's stuff that is so simple, but we just both look out and say, like, hey, what would make my spouse's life a little bit better, a little bit easier? And let me go do that. Right? Like, one of my things that I do is I take out the trash. That's like most guys, they take out the trash every single week. There are times where I'm swamped or I forgot or something like that, and my wife took the trash out for me. And she didn't go like, oh, I took the trash out, so now you got to do this and this and this for me. And like, no, she just took the trash out. Like, there's just times where we both help each other when we need help. There are times where we're both swamped a little bit more with things going on. And we just look for ways to serve each other. We look for ways to say, like, hey, how can I make your life a little bit better? How can I make it a little bit easier? And this is everything from financial stuff to stuff in the house to stuff in the bedroom to stuff like with the kids. It's just life in general. Look to serve each other. What are the expectations of the other person? And look to meet them and go beyond them. Right? And I think, like, it's great to make these big statements on your anniversary or on Valentine's Day or on their birthday and go all out for those things, right? And don't get me wrong, like, May 16th, our anniversary, is my favorite day of the year because it's the day we celebrate us, right? Like, it's the day of us, that the day that we got married, that we promised to be together forever. Like, our anniversary is my favorite day of the entire year. But there's 364 other days in a year. And so many people view marriage as these mountaintop experiences where it's like, and they think that marriage is built on these big moments. You know, when you first start dating, when you first get engaged, the day you get married, the honeymoon, the first kid being born, the 5-year, the 10-year anniversary, the 20-year anniversary. They think marriage is these just big mountaintop experiences. And that's what makes a happy marriage. But bro, if you take like your anniversary, both your birthdays, and I'll even give you like Valentine's Day and Christmas, that's 5 days a year. If your whole marriage and the happiness of your marriage is built on those 5 days a year, there's 360, sometimes 361 other days in a year. And what are you doing on those other 360 days to have a happier marriage? Because if you're not serving each other and going all out for each other those other 360 days of a year, those 5 days ain't going to mean nothing. They're not going to mean a thing. And so, yeah, like, celebrate each other's birthdays, celebrate your anniversary, go all out for that kind of stuff, man. But don't neglect the day to day, because a happy marriage, a strong marriage, a successful marriage, it isn't built on these big mountaintop experiences. It's built on the journey in between those days. As you're walking side by side and you're facing things shoulder to shoulder, and you know that, hey, our problem isn't with each other, but we're facing these problems together, and we're looking out for each other. We're being selfless in this thing together. We're taking care of each other, meeting each other's expectations, forgiving each other, not being petty and holding grudges when we're serving each other. These little things. And it really is little things. Like, a happy marriage is built on these little things. But these little things, when you look back at the end of your life, I think you look back and say, like, hey, I had this big, great, awesome marriage because we got the little things right. Not because, you know, we took this trip on this anniversary, or I got her this gift for Christmas. Like, that stuff's cool. Do that. But not in place of the little things on the day-to-day of life. That's where a strong marriage is built. That's where one that lasts the test of time and adversity, that's where the one is built. Great marriage isn't built on these big things. It's in the day-to-day little things where you're taking care of each other. You're looking out for each other. So you want to be happier in your marriage? You want a happier marriage? Focus on the little things. Focus on the day-to-day aspects. Take care of each other. Be selfless and serve each other. Forgive. Talk about your expectations of one another. Love y'all. Until next time, take care of yourself. Take care of your family. This is Kicks and Minivans.